Okay, my outstanding friends. Today we are going to start a new series called The Science Detectives. Means, motive, and opportunity. Who, what, where, how, and when, and just the facts, man. No baloney here. Now, what are we going to start with? Today we're going to start with a fire of suspicious origin. Now, this is a cold case crime scene investigation. This happened 11 or 12 years ago, somewhere around there. And that's my shop. And I had a fire, and my equipment burnt up, and, a lot of other stuff. And I said, I know why this fire started, and the fire investigator said, no, you're wrong. And I said, no, you are wrong. And we went around in circles. Of course, they won, but I was still right, and I will show you why I was right. Means, motive, opportunity, just the facts, my friends. Okay, so let's start out by lining up the suspects and the affectees. Well, this is some of the equipment that was being set up and serviced here, and we did programming, we did development here, and this is one of the pieces of equipment, and they were all over the place. And one morning, I personally, who owned this property and this equipment and so forth, and I lived in the house that was attached to my business, and I woke up to my wife screaming the house is on fire. And I immediately jumped up and looked out the window, and out of this window here, which I'll be showing you in a second, there was literally a blast furnace coming out. It absolutely looked horrifying. And I was still in bed, 6 o'clock in the morning. My wife was just getting up to get my son's up for school, and she screams the house is on fire. I ran out like instantaneously, got the hose out of the garage. It's the middle of the winter. It's cold as hell. It's December, I think it was December 15th. And I got the hose that I had put away very carefully, blew it out with air compressor, and had all the water was out of the hose. Thank God everything went perfect. I got it run out and put it on the faucet, turned it on, and squirted up through the window where it was all coming in, and was able to get it under control. It was already in the attic. Absolutely unbelievable how it got out. I don't even know how I was able to put it out. It was bad. I mean, it was as bad as it gets as far as I'm concerned. And they said you were like literally seconds away. And somehow I had that hose in and out. I was smashing down doors and everything to get it out. And when I put the hose on, I'll never forget, I put the thing on, and it started right away, and I went just like that. And I turned the water on, and boom, out it went, and off went the fire. Thank God. Thank you, God. Okay, my friends, science detectives, let's set the stage. Well, what do we have here? Well, we have a fire. That was a fire. That was in my shop. Now, what you're looking at here is a window. And in front of that window was a whole rack of equipment. There was printers and screens and scales and all kinds of stuff. And they were all over the place. And again, I think I already mentioned that I woke up in the morning and there was a fire. So we got the fire out, or I got the fire out. By the time the fire department arrived, it was basically out. They chopped a hole through up in the attic and made sure everything was okay up there, which it was, thank God. So this was traumatic, I'm telling you. This was scary as it can be. Now, I looked at this myself. Being an electronics guy, I fully understand what happens, and I understand fire, and I understand heat, and I understand how it rises up and everything else. Well, right across here, at the bottom on the sill of the window, was a power strip. Above that power strip, again, was a rack of equipment, and this display was up, obviously, it had fallen down, it was up here. Now, I looked into this and I understand what happened. This display literally caught fire. This is my take on this, and you see what you think. I'm going to show you the evidence. And I showed it to the fire investigator because this is a safety hazard. I said, there's a problem. And the same time I had my fire, about a mile away from me is the Connecticut State Police barracks. And they had, it's a big fancy building. And they had 2 fires in the same building that same night. And it was because they determined there was a power surge. I agree with that. And this turned on and did not deal with the power surge the way it should have. It allowed itself to burn up. That is a flaw in the engineering of that particular display. And this is what I wanted to have understood. And they didn't understand it. And they just... this is how it's always been. Every single time you come up with evidence, somebody will just walk away from it and say they're the expert. No, I'm going to show you the evidence. It can't be dismissed. I understand what happens. And what happened was there are power chips in here, and then there are little bitty chips that don't do much, and they're never going to burn up. But there's big ones like this. This is a driver. And you see that? That's what's called a heat sink. And in here, this is a transistor array. So what happens is there's little transistors that put out pulses on each one of these, depending upon what the processor says. We got to send it out on pin 7 or pin 8 or pin 2 to drive whatever is driven, a motor, a display, a printer, whatever it is. Now, they're just supposed to trigger and come and turn off normally. Otherwise, the heat builds up so much to start on fire. Now, before that fire starts, there should be some sense in here that says, hey, we're out of control. We got to stop this. And that's normally a fuse or a circuit breaker or whatever. That did not happen. And the ones at the state police building, I got to almost guarantee you they were probably the same monitors as this was. And this is why I was so upset. This was just a manufacturing defect. And trust me, I understand this because I used to replace these. This was never been in a circuit. You put these in the circuit in the boards and you solder them all in and you clip all the extra leads off. And this, naturally, that would have a big plate behind it. You'd bolt that right into it. So this would bleed off into another heat sink that would be behind it. I understand these things extremely well, and this is what I did my whole life. And as a matter of fact, just to back myself up a little bit, I was field engineering manager for Victor Business Products back in 1979, and Roger Spur and his Connecticut Yankees finished the last quarter, combined quarter profit objective, astounding 360%. They get their plaque shortly, nice going, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? This was 1979. Victor Business Products was just bought by Walter Kidder Corporation. They didn't want me in there anymore because I was showing they could become profitable. And they didn't want this group anymore. They didn't want the business machines. They wanted the leisure time products. Is this what I'm saying? And Walter Kidder basically destroyed me. I said, they didn't want me anymore because I was showing I was making a ton of profit, and everybody was happy with the equipment, but nobody else in the country was doing well. They were not fixing stuff. They didn't understand it. They were from the old regime. I was from the new regime. I understood the physics and the electronics and how everything worked. So I was golden, but they did not want that. And I can tell you, there are other situations that are going on right now where there's more than one solution to a problem, and there is other things that should be looked at. But when somebody takes control of something and they say, don't let anybody talk about anything else, we want it to go just this way, and that way we're going to get our objective met. And our objective was to make the business machine division not profitable. They didn't want anybody to make it succeed. I really don't know why. I think it was just too complex for them. All they really wanted was the leisure time products. And Victor owned Daisy BB guns, Hedon fishing tackle, Nissan gymnastic, PGA golf clubs, and other stuff. I don't even know. They owned a whole batch. They called it the leisure time group. And I was in the business division. And at that time, that was in such turmoil and flux. All the new equipment was coming in. Nobody could understand it. Nobody could fix it. Nobody could program it. There was all kinds of field engineering problems. And that's what I was. I was a all field engineering managers. That was my Eastern region. And then I ended up going on my own, and this was our system. And it was deadly, and it was the best. It was the best there was, and I'm not bragging. Yeah, I am bragging, because my old boss used to say, if it's true, it ain't bragging, and it ain't bragging. It was the best. We had all the cameras, and the text was inlaid on the cameras for everything that they rang up. We could search by name and what they was sold and when it was sold, and we did everything that was done in the point of sale systems, every kind of business. It was deadly. And we used to let them try it. You could try it, because they never took it. I never took it back. I never got them back. You see this? Can you see that? This was what would be on the. This was my little business card. This was what was on the screen. Everything that they bought, and when it was happening. You could search the database. Text searchable video journal. And that's it right there. That was my business. I owned it. And it was quite successful. And my point being is that I understood this on every level. And this I understood because I was technical. That was my technical background, was field engineering. And that is a dangerous monitor. Okay, so this is a whodunit, and we want to decide what caused this fire. I had my own opinion, and that went contrary to what the fire investigators decided. And I fully understand this stuff much better than they did. And this is my evidence to support this. I was a field engineering manager, Eastern Region. Roger Spurn, his Connecticut Yankees, finished the last quarter combined quota profit objective, astounding 360%. They get their plaque and so forth. Nice going, Roger. Well, this is 1979, when Victor Business Products was just taken over by Walter Kidder. They didn't want me because I was doing such a good job. They wanted somebody that would fail. So they made my quota so high that there was no way I could ever accomplish it, so I left. And this is another thing that I find happens over and over. When somebody gets in power and they want a certain outcome, it doesn't matter. If you can come up with a solution, they push it right under the carpet, because that solution interferes with their ultimate objective of whatever that is. And if you have an objective and you're in power, there is no one can stand up and present a counter objective that will be listened to. You will be silenced. And this is what happens in academia, and it happens in business, and it happens in the government. It's right across the board. People that are in power now, they have an absolute grip on power, and we don't even realize it. They say, oh, they're the experts. No, these guys were not experts. I was the expert. They didn't listen to me, and nobody listens to anybody that has information to present when the other guy has a status to protect. Okay, so that puts me back in the time frame of understanding how these things work, and understanding about things like this, which is a driver transistor array. And you see that big metal spot in the back? That's a heat sink. And that means that if this thing turns on and drives these little transistors, they should turn on and off, and do their job, and the heat will be collected in this. And then this is bolted to a big piece of aluminum with little fins in it, and it dissipates the heat. Now, if this thing turned on and not off, it would just continue to heat and heat and heat, and at some point the heat sink would not be able to accept anymore, and then you'd have a fire. If it was near plastic, and it was, and underneath here it heated like crazy, and then melted. It burnt upwards, and then everything melted and flowed down. That's my take. Now, you watch what happened here. Again, this is all this. I had a business. Hold on. This was our equipment. I developed the system myself. Scott Cook was a programmer. He programmed, absolutely fabulous job. We used remote eyes camera system to embed into the point of sale, so we could do text searches, and it was very, very sophisticated. We did everything that was done in the point of sale business, and we had the Dunkin' Donuts and all kinds of people. Sharp actually bought my system and put it in their world headquarters to show off their equipment, and it was our point of sale product. Now, any rate, so I do have a little credibility here. I understand the whole 9 yards, right from the start, of how things program, how they turn on and turn off, and why heat sinks can overheat and cause problems. This particular night that I had my fire, down the street, and I might have already talked about this before, but there was 2 fires at the state police building. This is an unsafe monitor. This thing burnt up, and I wanted it looked into, and they told me I was crazy, and they just dropped it. Well, you tell me if I'm crazy or not. Listen to this. This was the video I did to, and of course nobody looked. Right, this is a whodunit. We got an Acer monitor here, and that monitor was right up here. It was sitting right here, and now there is a divot where the base of this monitor was. And if you look at that base of that monitor, you'll see why, because that thing burnt right there. Now, look directly straight above, and you can see the fire, the most intense spot of the fire. All right, now, if you look closely at the monitor, you see this. All right, you see that little hole right there? Right behind that hole was one of these. And it got so hot that it started and melted this hole in the panel. Because this would have been upside down. Just so you understand, I'm going to just turn the camera upside down. You can see it just the way it was. Alright? What I'm pointing at there, all of that stuff ran down and melted down to the base. Let me play it forward a little bit, see if it makes sense to you here. This hole, this monitor was actually right here, up like this. Alright, now, let's turn it back around, because I am back around. I hope this works. Alright, so we saw there was a hole melted, and which means the heat would go upwards and start a fire up above in the plastic. Then everything would melt and come downwards. Can we agree on that? Yes, we can. It actually overheated, in my estimation, and at that point the hole started, and you can see that came up. That wasn't burnt up to this hole. You see all that burnt, and then it dribbled down onto the base, and the base caught on fire, and then that's when this thing fell off. It didn't burn from underneath and burn the base and then somehow get inside of it. It started up here, flowing down, and I'll show you the burning lava. The hole started this fire above. Right there. Here's where the fire erupted, and you see the difference. You see it? It erupted right out from inside. The heat sink started a hole right there. This is an eruption from inside. This started on fire, ran down, which of course it's upside down now, and then ran down to see. Come in close on this. This texture here is burning. That's burning, just like lava. Right, exactly. Now, in the upside down orientation, that burnt stuff flowed down to the base and burnt the base and created that divot, which is this hole right here on this oak plank. Wait a minute, let me back this up. I don't think you saw that. Let me get back to here. All right, I think somewhere around here we should be. All right, there's the key right there. That's where the hole started, right there. That was just behind this somewhere. There's a heat sink, and it just overheated. It turned on, never turned off. That's a problem with the display. Now let's go forward. Here we go. This was actually right here, up like this. It actually overheated, in my estimation, and at that point the hole started, and you can see that came up. That wasn't burnt up to this hole. That hole started this fire above. Here's where the fire erupted, and you see the different texture there. And come in close on this. This texture here is burning. That's burning, just like lava. Now, in the upside down orientation, that burnt stuff flowed down to the base and burnt the base and created that divot, which is this hole right here on this oak plank, and finally melted itself so bad that it fell off and landed where it was found in the morning, right like this. Well, not found in the morning, after the fire went out. Now, that dripping came down all over here, and there's another monitor, which is this one. It was up here, that was burnt from below. This monitor was not plugged in. When I say it wasn't plugged in, it wasn't plugged into a machine. You know, the cord was here, but it wasn't plugged into a machine to say go and turn anything on or anything. You know, obviously the outlet was plugged in, but it wasn't turned on by the machine. Turns out the monitor on. The wire was left hanging and not plugged into anything. This was a APC power strip, a Surge Pro Professional. There's one over here, another one there. It's exactly the same right there. All right, and it's a Surge Pro Professional. We got this in here just so that we can look at. This isn't normally this would have been missing. It's just printers and so forth here. This we had to get powered back up, and that's just here so we could power into it. You know, there's no power left in it. And that's what caused this fire. And it was within seconds of being... This was absolutely horrifying, this would have been. And my son's room is not too far from this. I have a batch of garages, basically, that I turned into offices and storage and all that stuff. And down the other end of it was his room. In the attic, it would have gone right into his room if it got in the attic. And this was so hot in here that even this was not even close to where the fire was, melted. The inside of this room must have been a couple hundred degrees at least, 300 degrees, or I don't know what it was, but it was hot, man. And when it was shooting out of that window, I could see it just looked like a blast furnace. Absolutely horrifying at 6 o'clock in the morning to wake up to that. Okay, my friends, from now on we're going to treat everything as an investigation, just like they did on Dragnet in 1954 with Sergeant Joe Friday. This is from Screenbound Pictures.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Intelligence. You keep tabs on these boys?
Yeah.
What about the victim? You think Starkey was in trouble?
He was at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
It's gonna take long.
You got the time?
Mine's worth money, yours isn't.
Send in a bill.
I asked you a question.
You're here to answer him, not ask him.
Now, you listen to me, cop. I pay your salary.
All right, sit down. I'm gonna earn it.
You already have the kind of money you make. What do they pay you to carry that badge around? 40 cents an hour?
You sit down. That badge pays $464 a month. That's what the job's worth. I knew that when I hired on. $67.40 comes out for withholding. I give $27.84 for pension and $12 for widows and orphans. That leaves me $356.76. That badge is worth $1.82 an hour. So, mister, you just settle back in that chair because I'm going to blow about 20 bucks of it right now.
You and that toad get out of here.
We got no beef with you.
Come on, I'll help you out.
I remember this when I was a kid. I never missed a show. He was great. And that was going to be Lieutenant Roger, badge 715. Sorry, Sergeant. I'm going to take over as the lieutenant now. Anyway, I'm going to treat everything as an investigation. We're going to have a good time. We're going to see. Let's just set the scene. We're going to do this. We're just going to do exactly this. Science detectives. The means, motive, and opportunity. What are we looking at? What's the crime scene? Who's the people involved? What's the participants? Who's to gain? Who's to lose? Who, what, where, how, when? What's going on with this? Just the facts, man.